You ever find yourself fully on board with your intuition and you're really going for it, 1,000 miles an hour, absolutely sure you're doing the right thing, only to discover you were wrong? My name's Sonia Choquette. Today I'm going to talk about how to avoid confusing overlays and projections with intuition so that you don't end up hitting a dead end at 90 miles an hour. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a spiritual intuitive guide and teacher and channel who has been teaching people for over 45 years how to fine-tune this inner guidance and not confuse it with overlays so you don't get into those "my intuition was wrong" situations. And also, if you're coming back, thank you for coming back. I'm sure this has crossed your mind too, and it is a subject we need to discuss as we are waking up our inner guidance now, our inner being, and connecting to our miracle self, our divine self, and letting that part of us guide us. So what is it when your intuition, which you're so sure was right, proves to be really wrong? Well, what's wrong is that you confused emotion with intuition. It's easy enough to do, and a big reason for that is because of the language. When we're referring to our intuition, we are often inclined to say, it's what I feel. But that word also is the same word that we use for our emotions. So if we have strong emotions about something, it can actually override our inner guidance, the subtle communication from our inner being, which is speaking to us vibrationally. In other words, it's not what we emotionally feel, it's what we energetically sense, experience communicating with us. So we have to slow down and not let those two faculties get crisscrossed. First way to do that is to come back to your body and slow down, because emotion can tend to be urgent and pushy and insistent, whereas intuition is pretty neutral and calm. Emotion says that this is it, I feel it, gotta do it, let's go. Where your intuition would say, this is right, it's a good idea, and much calmer. So that's the first indication that you are confusing emotion, and in particular, the emotion of enthusiasm. I want this to be right. I want this experience to feel good. I want so much for what appears to be in front of me to be what actually is, that I'm just going to push it forward instead of listen. For example, I had a client a couple of years back in Chicago who really wanted to leave Chicago and move to California, and in particular wanted to go to Silicon Valley and work in tech and startups. That was her interest. That was her ambition. She really wanted it. She didn't resonate with the Chicago weather. She felt she was from the East Coast, and she didn't feel like she really resonated with the Chicago population. So her enthusiasm and her ambition pushed and pushed and pushed until she got offered a job and a very attractive job at a startup in Silicon Valley. And man, she was ecstatic. This is it. I want it. Let's go for it. Let's do it. This is it. I've been waiting for this. And still, when she was talking with me about it, twice she said, man, I just hope those are good guys. Twice. And I said to her, well, pause. If you're so sure this is your intuition, why did you mention that twice? What's incongruent? She said, no, that's just, we kind of rushed the deal, and I said yes, and it feels so good emotionally. This is an interesting thing about intuition. It will seep to the surface, even when your enthusiasm is like a house on fire. And it'll kind of come up and get your attention. You can shut it down again, as she did. So she went for the job. And she wasn't there but for a very short time when the whole thing imploded. She had uprooted herself, her left a good job in Chicago, left her family. Here she was, and it didn't work out. It was wrong. Now, I would say it was a disappointing outcome. Was it absolutely wrong? Well, maybe it was just a bridge scenario to get her to California, where she actually ended up staying. And because it was necessary, looked for other things. And after another 2 months, did find a company. Actually, it wasn't even in startups at all. It was in the film industry and production. She loved it ever since. So that's the second point about intuition. We can confuse it with enthusiasm, but sometimes we approach intuition as all or nothing, black or white, right or wrong, and that's the logic brain. Intuition is riding and surfing, moment to moment, finding the energy. Now, her inner self did absolutely have the goal, absolutely had the intention to get to California. That was a true inner calling. So she took this boat to get there. The immediate job, she talked herself into it, but after the fact, I said, were you really surprised? Were you really caught off guard? Were you totally blindsided that that wasn't what you wanted? And she said, no, I wasn't. I talked myself into it because I wanted to get to California. So was her intuition wrong? Or was it just trying to be absolutely right instead of this is a good first step? Slightly disruptive, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So we can't be absolute. So a couple things we're learning. 1, don't confuse intuition with emotion. 2, intuition isn't pushy. It's pretty calm. And 3, it's not all or nothing. It's a moment to moment to moment to moment guidance, and life changes. It was correct to get her out to California, and then it continued to guide her on to what ended up being a different industry. And she had the same intuitive experience, but she said the second time when it was about taking the job in the film industry and production, she wasn't house afire with enthusiasm. She said, I sat with it for a good 2 weeks, very quietly. And even though my logic brain tried really hard to talk me out of it, saying, you don't know this industry, this is not your background, lots of objections, my very calm inner being spirit, my miracle self, said, nevertheless, this is good for you. This will be good for you. And she said it prevailed, and I ended up taking that job, and it turned out to be fantastic. So we have to give up the all or nothing approach and understand intuition is like GPS that's going to keep adjusting to get you where you're going. Now, this brings us to another scenario of why my intuition was wrong. And that is that you don't want it. You don't want to hear it. You don't want anything to do with what is actually coming up, because the intuition is the voice of your miracle self, inner being, spirit, telling you the truth of what is congruent for you, for your essence, for your inner being, for the spirit of you. I had a client once that I had known for many years, and we had a very good rapport, but one year she called me. She had a very difficult marriage, had a divorce, was divorced for a while, happily, but then she met a guy online, on LinkedIn, of all places. And he was in the military, and he had a very difficult past, and he was in Saudi Arabia, but he was going to be coming back to the States, and just really love bombed her. Really, really gave her a very long story. And she said, I'm in love. He's coming to meet me, and he just has had a little bit of trouble. And it was like, okay, then why are you here? She goes, well, he just needed a short-term loan. It's no big deal because, he's in the Army. I've seen him I've seen him on Zoom. He's in his uniform, and I can tell he's in Saudi, and I know he's telling me the truth. But I said, so why are you here? What are you asking me? She says, well, I just want a little bit of backup reassurance. And I said, is that really why you're asking me, or more? She goes, no. He's my guy. I'm in love. And she got actually quite annoyed with me. Really, really quite annoyed. I said, okay, well, your inner guidance will always break through that push of insistence of your ego, your will. He said, you're here because you're wondering if your enthusiasm for someone love bombing you so deliciously isn't misguiding you. Sure enough, she sent him several loans. He was supposed to show up. She went to the airport, had presents, got catfished, got taken full advantage of, never showed up. I didn't learn about this until a couple of years later when she finally came back again for a consultation, and she said, I didn't want to come back because I was embarrassed. I didn't want you to judge me, which I never would judge her because I know how hard and difficult life is. And we've all been overwhelmed by our emotions and wishful thinking. But I did say the important takeaway is that you weren't completely surprised. You were definitely disappointed. Your emotional inner child self wanted so much to believe in this, but your body was telling you. So when we say our intuition was wrong, let's be a little bit more discerning. Was it? Or was your emotional self so intent on seeing something a certain way that you just didn't want and weren't available to acknowledge that something was incongruent? The fairy tale for intuition is The Princess and the Pea. And if you don't remember that fairy tale, it's worth reading. But in short, Prince needed a bride, and the princess had to pass. The princesses contending to be the bride had to pass a test. She had to sleep on 100 mattresses, under which in the bottom was placed a little pea. Now, the princess who can sense that pea was the one who was the true princess, the true bride. Well, a lot of them woke up and maybe sensed it, but it was not until the one who said so. So it's not enough to feel it. Doesn't even know God. It's when you say so, you become the chosen. That is the part that's authentic. In this particular fairy tale, the metaphor is the prince is your logic and he needs a bride. Your left brain needs a partner, and the partner needs to have the sensibility and courage to speak up. And that's when you inherit the whole consciousness. And that is why you have to keep looking for, do you feel the pea under the mattress? And do you say so? Another reason why we get blocked in our intuition, we feel like our intuition is wrong, is we're afraid of the consequences. Because often your intuition is going to point out something that quite possibly may not be terribly popular. I had a client who had just become a junior partner in a law firm, and he really wanted the job and was so excited. And there was a slightly senior guy that was the cool guy, and everybody kind of admired him, and he had a lot of charisma. And my client said, I just so wanted him to like me, but my intuition didn't like him. Now, I was appalled at that feeling. So I just said, that's just my insecurity. That's my competition. That's my high school feeling like the cool jock guy is not going to be nice to me. But in fact, the more he got to know the guy, he got to be around him, the more he felt like in order to be in his good graces, my client had to keep ignoring his intuition, keep telling himself he's a good guy, keep telling himself that that's the way to be. And he said, I ended up betraying myself left, right, and center to get this guy's approval, when in fact he was a real con. He was just a manipulative and narcissistic, self-serving and dishonest guy. It took me 5.5 years to finally say, that's it. I'm not going to tell myself any longer that what I'm feeling is wrong. It's not. My emotions were what were causing me to misread the situation and be in denial. So when you're having an intuitive experience that's all wrong, it's not your intuition. It's your emotions, your wishful thinking, your ego agendas overriding. Because intuition is subtle and it's not pushy. Your ego is pushy. Your emotions can be intense. One of the ways you can tell is if you get super reactive and very defensive. It's a very good sign that you're confusing emotion with vibrational communication. So what are you going to do to stop that? Well, first of all, we have to get calm and grounded. And if you have a strong emotion about something, acknowledge it. Like with this client, I want to be loved. I want it to be that guy. I want to feel that I haven't lost out on love in my life. I want this experience. I want to believe someone thinks that of me. And so I'm overriding all the red flags. Even if you just start acknowledging what your emotions want, like the other client, I want to go to California. So, and in that case, I was willing to take the risk of this because I wanted to get there. And once I got there, I found a better way. It's never all or nothing. And no matter what, even if what happens is disappointing outcome, which we call wrong, there's a lesson there. There's an opportunity. So you always say, well, okay, I'm disappointed. What did I learn? And was my intuition really sleeping on the job? Or was my ego, my ambition, my control, my emotion faking out and acting like intuition? Intuition is subtle, consistent, not pushy, and it leaves you relaxed. In all these cases, none of my clients were relaxed. They were intense. When you relax, that's your intuition is going to say, well, you have free will, do whatever you want, but this is what's really happening. So you want to get as relaxed as you can and get honest. Do you honestly want to know? This is the biggest reason why I feel like people misread their intuition or project their emotions and their will over it because they want what they have in mind what they want, and they want to tell themselves it's their intuition that's encouraging that. Real intuition is a very subtle and quiet emanation from the heart, and it doesn't even talk in words. It's just a vibration that like lets you know if you're drifting. It's like, have you ever had a car that's out of line, you're going along and all of a sudden wobble, 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 wobble. That's intuition. When you're drifting, it'll wobble, wobble, wobble energetically. Just can't feel good about it. And you know what? Give yourself permission to back out. I have many times, and anybody who knows me knows that if I commit to something and then my intuition rises up and says, that is not what you want. It could be for one of two reasons. One, my emotions overrode it. Or two, things changed. So that's, you're driving along with the GPS and there might be an accident on the road that wasn't there when you started out and it flags it. Okay, your intuition wasn't wrong. Something changed. That's why you want to be flexible. You want to go moment to moment to moment in the body, reading the energy as it's unfolding. So just to summarize this, and I'll talk about this some more. Do you really want to know? Are you being honest? Are you confusing ambition and emotion and control for intuition? Are you being pushy about it? Reactive? Overly in denial, enthusiastic, like my client who was catfished by someone, really pretty much robbed of quite a few $1,000s. The truth is your intuition will always find a way to express itself, even in the midst of all that intensity. Something in you will say, well, wait a minute, I'm not on board. That's your spirit, your inner being. So you can get as excited as you want, but it doesn't feel 100% true. And so give yourself permission to back out and give yourself permission to learn if you bore full speed into something and hit a disappointment. So really, it's never wrong. You're just learning to discern and distinguish between emotion, which is not intuition, willfulness, which is not intuition, and inner guidance from your inner being, from your spirit, which is that tracking of the energy that keeps you aligned with what you really intend and want to experience. So I hope this helps you, and it bears more discussion. We're talking the future, but this is the beginning. So put in the notes, in the comments, what have you confused? Was it willpower? Was it emotion? Was it control? Was it fear of disapproval? What was it that you confused with? It kept you ignoring a deeper intuition and confusing emotional willfulness. Because once you name it, you know what? You won't make that mistake as often again. In fact, you may only make that mistake once you name it, never again. So you'll learn. And when it is real intuition, and if you have felt real intuition, had to stand with it, even though everything in your logic brain and in your outer world did not support that, share with us how that felt too. Because it is an inner certainty and an inner conviction. It's an inner truth, your truth for now. That isn't going to be movable. That's how intuition is, but it's quiet. It's not noisy, pushy, or dramatic. It's just, nevertheless, going with my vibes. I hope this helps you. Please leave your comments. Give me a thumbs up if it did. And better yet, please subscribe, because we are developing the most important guidance system you can possibly develop for these transformational times and help you get to the fifth dimension, which is your miracle self, your true miracle self, the spirit, the authentic inner being that you are, that will always lead you to the best outcome. Okay, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. All my love.